Since it was the last one before the summer break, everybody wanted to talk about a whole range of things. But mainly the two more important, as always, has been the situation in the Gaza war and the Ukrainian war. As always, we started the day by discussing Ukraine with Prime Minister Kuleba, connected online. When we went to the situation in the Middle East, we have an important exchange with the President of the European Investment Bank, Nadia Calviño. This lasted more than expected because member states were very much interested in knowing more from the new President of the EIB. But let me start with two important decisions which will strengthen our partnership with Armenia. First, we adopted the first ever assistance measure under the European Peace Facility for Armenia for around 10 million euros. And second, we gave green light to launch a visa liberalization dialogue with Armenia. These two decisions were long awaited by Armenia, and I am very happy that this could be finally agreed before the summer break, because you know how the situation is tense in the Caucasus, and this will strengthen our partnership with Armenia. On Ukraine, nearly all ministers condemned the Russian missile attack against civilians and the recent attack against the Children's Hospital in Kyiv, which shows that Ukraine needs more air defense, and the defense is being required now. So we discuss and we review what we have been able to supply since the last month at the Washington meeting, and member states consider the possibility of increasing its support to Ukraine in order to reject these criminal air attacks. The other problem was the energy infrastructure. This is an important point of the capacity of Ukraine to resist. There is a high percentage of Ukrainian electricity generation capacity that has been damaged or destroyed, or it is out of the territory controlled by the Ukrainian government. And this is happening in summer. You can imagine in winter. Putin wants to put Ukraine into the darkness and the cold. And that's why the coming 2 or 3 months will be crucial. And we don't have time to wait before the winter arrives. I asked ministers to start mobilizing now to provide more power generation capacities to Ukraine. Contributing to the Ukrainian Energy Support Fund is also needed. Then we went to our military support for Ukraine through the European Peace Facility. Most member states insisted on the need to lift the blockage for this payment pending for months, more than years or year. And at the same time, they stressed the importance to move on regarding the decision to implement the new Ukrainian Assistance Fund, which has been blocked by one member state for more than 1 year. And member states insisted that this was something unacceptable, unbearable, but unhappily the situation of blockage remains. On the windfall profit, I updated ministers on the progress towards the first transfer of 1.4 billion expected to happen at the beginning of August, next week. And we are set to finance the acquisition of priority military equipment, once again air defense, once again ammunition for artillery, and also, and this is new, procurement for the Ukrainian defense industry. So we are not going only to provide military support to Ukraine, but from Ukraine itself, which is certainly the most logical and efficient thing we can do. Then we discussed with Kuleba the next steps following the Summit on Peace in Switzerland, and agreed that we have to do more to engage with global partners from across the world. This summit in Switzerland got good results, but this has to be improved. So about 90 states who has agreed with the final statement of this meeting, but we have to continue reaching out to them in order to counter the Russia propaganda and to clarify and to explain everybody around the world what's going on in Russia, attack against Ukraine. To remind there is an aggressor and an aggressed, that Ukraine is defending, and we are supporting Ukraine on defending itself. Sometimes this is not being explained, or sometimes it is even hide. No, let's tell the truth. Let's stress the position of the European Union, which is and remains, and has been for quite a long, to support the Zelensky's peace formula, which is the only peace plan in town, here in Brussels. The only peace plan that the European Union support. Let me say that again. Russia is the aggressor in violation of the United Nations Charter, and Ukraine the victim, exercising its fundamental right to self-defense. And there's nothing of hysteria about that. It's just telling the truth. The European Union policy is not a pro-war policy. We strongly rejected that. We analyzed the statements and the actions implemented by the Hungarian Prime Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister of Hungary, and with one single exception, I can say that all member states, with one single exception, were very much critical about this behavior. It's Putin who is the war party. The only one who is pro-war is Putin, who is calling for the Ukraine partition and rendition as preconditions for any talks and any ceasefire. And he sends reminders every day in the form of thousands of missiles, drones and glide bombs and more military offensive. So if you want to talk about the war party, talk about Putin, not about the European Union. Putin is the pro-war party here. We want peace. No one wants peace more than the Ukrainians themselves. But for a fair and lasting peace that needs to preserve Ukraine's freedom and independence and ensure accountability for the many war crimes that has been happening since the war started. Any so-called peace mission that ignores these basic fundamentals is, at the end of the day, only benefiting Putin and will not bring peace. With a single exception, I think that all member states agreed on the need to work for peace, but on this basis. 25 member states criticized Hungary's action, also in light of its responsibilities as rotating presidency. And nearly all member states insisted on the need to keep unity. And I reminded on the duty of loyalty on the Article 24.3 of the Treaty of the European Union, who is there not for decoration, is not there as empty words. Each member state is sovereign on its foreign policy, true. But as far as they are members of this club, they have to obey to the treaties and in particular to this article, which is asking for loyal cooperation and implementation of the common positions on foreign policy. It's not something that you can do or not. You have to. And members discuss about another issue, which is where to hold the informal Foreign Affairs Council. There were quite a strong division. I tried to do my best in order to get unity. I was listening to everybody, listening to all arguments, trying to make them converge, maybe in the middle of the way position. It has not been possible. Some were willing to go to Budapest, business as usual. Others clearly didn't want to go. And others say, okay, it's the High Representative to decide. And certainly it is up to me. It's according with my capacities to decide when and where the councils are meeting, either informal or informal setting. So after listening to everybody and spending hours on discussing and trying to understand the reasons of ones and the others, I had to take a decision, and I consider that if the 25 member states were strongly against this position, these statements, these prises de position done by messages, or even at the United Nations Security Council itself, under the invitation of Minister Lavrov, telling the EU policy is the policy of war. I understood that we have to send a signal, even if it is a symbolic signal, that being against the foreign policy of the European Union and disqualifying the policy of the European Union as the party of war has to have some consequences. Well, formal consequences, symbolic consequences, nothing grave will happen, but I think it was much more appropriate to show this feeling and to call for the next Foreign and Defence Council meetings, informal, in Brussels, when we come back from holidays. Now the Middle East. I invited the EU Special Representative for Human Rights to present his report made on the basis of assessment by relevant United Nations institutions regarding respect for international human rights law and international humanitarian law. My ministers were also briefed by our EUSR, Sven Kuhlmann, for the Middle East peace process, on the effort to revive the process in cooperation with our Arab partners and others. After nearly 10 months, 290 days, the war in Gaza continues raging, and we witness new forced evacuation of exhausted civilians. There are more than 17,000 orphans in Gaza. And let me give some facts. Humanitarian access, which was always difficult, now it has imploded. Daily truck crossing into Gaza dropped from 193 on average in April to less than 76 in June, less than half, and 84 during the first 2 weeks of July. There is no way of giving the support that the human being in Gaza require with this drop on humanitarian support. And this doesn't happen by accident. The limited aid getting into the north cannot reach the south. The average of trucks entering via Kerem Shalom is 14 trucks a day. Before the war were hundreds per day. Now 14. Not 40, 14. Virtually everyone in Gaza is dependent on aid to survive. 96% of Gaza population are acutely food insecure. You can say whatever you want, but this is a horror, unbearable, and we must do everything we can to stop it for the sake of our own humanity. Unfortunately, negotiations for a ceasefire and release of hostages are dragging, with no positive outcome in the way. It has been this statement, this advice for the International Court of Justice, and allow me to say, on the light of this advice, that today we find ourselves in a situation where international law has never been as far as the situation in the ground. And international law has come to replace the failings of politics. But however legitimated, however strong, international legal institutions are not there to implement the law. They are there to state the law. But to implement the law has to be done by political actors, not by the courts. The courts issuing rulings or advices provide a valuable guide for the players in the international community who are at the end the responsibles and guarantors of international security. Never before the gap between the law and the reality has been so wide. Never before what the law says and what happens on the ground has been so insurmountable. And all this under the watchful eye of a powerless international community. So today there is no ceasefire, there is no plan for Gaza, there is no revival of the global settlement. On the contrary, there is the continuation of military operations in Gaza, and it's becoming banal to say today, tomorrow, and yesterday, and the day tomorrow, that some tens or some hundreds of people are being killed under the bomb, and the hostages have still not been released. This territory has been transformed into a stateless home. This is Mogadishu in Mediterranean, where war will reign for all against all, and where violence will be a substitute for politics. We are happy to see that our European Investment Bank will support the Palestinian Authority. We are happy to know that the President of the Commission presented on her speech to the Parliament a plan to support the Palestinian Authority in order to boost also their reforms, but we need to act quickly if we want to avoid a whole catastrophe this summer. Members support our work and our efforts in order to organize in the Hungary Week another meeting as the one that we held last year. I remember last September, some weeks before the terrorist attack by Hamas, we were talking about the two-state solution. And the day after, what an irony, 1 year later, we will again be in New York meeting, and we will have to have another meeting to talk about the day after. But after what? After this terrorist attack and about 40,000 people being killed in Gaza? Yes, the international community has to wake up, and the European Union has to do more efforts in order to support the peace process, starting with a ceasefire, humanitarian support, release of hostages, and political prospects for the two-state solution. But it's clear that the advice of the International Court of Justice saying that the occupation of the West Bank is illegal and it has to end, and Israel has to withdraw from these territories, has got an immediate answer from Netanyahu government saying, no, 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 this is our land. It belongs to us. Now there is a fight between history or interpretation of the history and international law. And this is a very critical moment for all of us, because maybe the war will rage on Lebanon, on Yemen. Maybe it will be worse still in Gaza. So let's keep very much busy during the summer break in order to try to do as much as we can in order to prevent a greater catastrophe. Thank you.